During the family dinner, my parents told me, "Everything we have will go to your sister. You've never helped with anything." My sister announced this with a triumphant smile. "You were never the favorite. We've decided to leave everything to your sister," my parents declared firmly. I calmly got up and warned them that I would no longer pay for their medical expenses. A month later, my parents called me, completely desperate. For a moment, I thought I had misheard. The aroma of pumpkin pie still lingered in the air, and the mashed potatoes were cooling on the table. But suddenly, the warm Christmas dinner turned icy cold. I set down my glass of wine as Dad added, "The house, the savings, everything will be for her." Across from me, Sophia toyed with her wine glass, wearing a smug smile. "Anyway, you've hardly ever contributed," she said with a shrug. I laughed bitterly. "That I haven't helped?" I repeated, shaking my head. "Who paid their medical bills? Who covered Dad's surgery? Last year? Who made sure they could keep living here?" Mom sighed as if it didn't matter. "We never asked you to do that, Liam." At that moment, I felt the weight of all those years spent taking care of them. The sleepless nights calculating how to cover my own expenses while still sending them money. While Sophia never lifted a finger but always received all the praise. I remembered an episode from our childhood as vividly as if it were yesterday. I was 10 when I fell off my bike and injured my knee. Sophia, barely 7 at the time, stood there with her arms crossed while I tried to get up. Mom didn't even look away from her magazine. "Stop crying, Liam. Sophia is the strong one in this family, not you." Dad simply grunted in agreement. Even back then, Sophia was their princess, and me. I was just useful. I ran a hand over my face, forcing myself back to the present. "Are you joking?" I asked with a calmness that masked my anger. "You call me every time you need something. You literally said you'd be in trouble without my help." Sophia rolled her eyes. "You always make such a big deal out of everything. If you didn't want to help, you could have just said no." I stared at her intently. That same arrogance, that same condescending attitude she'd shown since childhood. She never asked for anything. She just expected it. And when she got it, she acted as if it were her right. Slowly, I pushed my chair back and stood up. "Fine," I said, buttoning my jacket. Sophia scoffed. "Here he goes again. Another one of your dramatic exits." I leaned forward slightly and replied in a calm but firm voice. "Good luck with the bills, because I won't be paying another cent." Mom's eyes widened. "Liam, wait." She started, but I cut her off. "You've made your decision. You don't need my help, right? Well, now you won't have it." I turned to Sophia. "I hope you're finally ready to work for something in your life." Her smile vanished. "You can't just leave like that." I watched her, expression change, and walked out. For the first time in years, I left that house without feeling crushed, without feeling used. A month later, my phone rang. I looked at the screen, knowing exactly who it was. Mom. I let the call go straight to voicemail. A minute later, she called again. And then again. By the 5th attempt, curiosity got the better of me. I sighed and answered, keeping my voice as neutral as possible. "Liam, sweetheart," Mom said in a softer tone than I'd ever heard from her. "We need to talk." I leaned back in my chair, rubbing my temples. I had just finished a 12-hour shift at the hospital, and my body was screaming for rest. Barely through the door, I had kicked off my shoes and poured myself a drink when the phone started ringing. "About what?" I asked coldly, though I already knew the answer. There was a pause, then a sigh. "Sophia is going through a tough time, and we could really use your help." I almost laughed. "My help? You mean money, right?" "Of course. That's it," Mom replied. A noise came from the other end of the line, and then Dad's gruff voice took over. "Listen, Liam," he said impatiently. "We know things got out of hand at Christmas, but let's be realistic. You've always been the one handling these things. We're your parents. You can't just abandon us." I clenched my jaw, feeling the full weight of exhaustion crash over me. I can, I replied. Silence. Mom tried again, now with an artificially warm tone. Liam, we raised you. We gave you everything. I let out a bitter laugh. You gave me a childhood filled with guilt and a life of impossible expectations. I cut her off. Meanwhile, Sophia has always been your princess, untouchable. Well, you know what? Now she can take care of you. There was a pause. Then Mom's voice cracked. She can't. She doesn't have any money. And there it was. The truth. Sophia was useless to them, but I wasn't. And now, for the first time in their lives, they had to face the consequences of betting on the wrong child. I became a doctor because I wanted to help people. I spent years surviving medical school, enduring brutal 16-hour shifts as an intern, living off coffee and barely 2 hours of sleep. I remember those early years. Endless nights without sitting down, running between patients, filling out endless paperwork, making life-or-death decisions while my body begged me to rest. And I did it all alone. My parents never helped me financially, while my classmates had their tuition paid by their families. Me? I had to take out massive student loans and work overtime just to afford food. Meanwhile, Sophia spent her days partying at university, racking up credit card debt, and living like she was on an endless vacation. When she dropped out of school, my parents kept spoiling her. She's just finding her way, they'd say. But when I finally graduated and started earning more money than I'd ever imagined, guess who suddenly needed my help? At first, I told myself it was temporary. A few €100 here, a bit more there. Then it was Dad's surgery, Mom's medication, Sophia's unexpected rent problems. At some point, I became their personal ATM. More than half my salary went to them every month. The worst part? It was never enough. When I worked consecutive night shifts, exhausted to the bone, the only thing Mom cared about was whether I'd sent the money for the electricity bill. When I canceled my vacation because the hospital was short-staffed, the only thing Dad said was, "Sophia really wanted to go to Valencia this year. Maybe you could help her out." And when I finally saved enough to buy my own apartment, Mom guilt-tripped me into paying their mortgage instead. Not once, not even once, did they ask if I was okay. "You're talking about the medical bills I used to pay before you decided I wasn't part of the family anymore?" I shot back at my dad. "You made your choice. Now you'll have to live with it." "Liam, please," Mom tried again. "We didn't mean—" Yes, that's exactly what you meant," I interrupted. "And so did I. Goodbye, Mom." I hung up. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the one feeling trapped by guilt. I wasn't the one being used, and God, what a relief it was. But the silence didn't last long. For 2 weeks after that call, my parents tried every trick in the book. First came Mom's guilt-laden messages. "We're going through a rough patch, Liam. I don't know how we'll pay for your father's medication this month." Then came the feigned concern. "You're working too much, sweetheart. Don't you think you're becoming too cold? We just want to talk." When that didn't work, they moved on to outright demands. "You're a doctor, for heaven's sake. Money means nothing to you. But we're your parents. You owe us." I ignored every single message. And then Sophia called. I stared at the phone when her name popped up on the screen. Since Christmas, she hadn't reached out to me once. Not a text, not a call. And now suddenly, she was calling. Out of sheer curiosity, I answered. "Took you long enough," I said as soon as I picked up. "Seriously, you ignore Mom and Dad? Acting like a child." I sighed. "What do you want, Sophia?" "I want you to stop being selfish and fix this mess. Mom's losing it, Dad's stressed, and I don't have the money to cover all their expenses. You know that." I smirked sarcastically. "Maybe you should have thought about that before assuming you'd inherit everything." Silence on the other end. Then she huffed. "God, you're so bitter." "Bitter," I repeated in a dangerously calm voice. "Let's talk about what's really bitter. Bitter is accepting my money for years without ever saying thank you. Bitter is sitting there at Christmas, smiling while Mom and Dad crossed me out of the will after I paid off their entire mortgage. Bitter is calling me now only because your perfect plan is falling apart. That's not being bitter, she snapped. She took a deep breath, switching tactics. Liam, listen, I get it. You're angry. But you're still part of this family, and family helps each other. I laughed. Really, I laughed. No, Sophia. I was an ATM, not family. And ATMs stop working when you try to withdraw too much. I hung up before she could say another word. That should have been the end of it. I thought maybe, finally, they'd take me seriously. But I underestimated just how far my family would go in desperation. It happened on a Tuesday evening. I had just finished an exhausting shift at the hospital. My hands still smelled of antiseptic. My feet ached from standing all day. I was drained, barely able to keep my eyes open as I pulled into the garage of my building. And there they were, Mom, Dad, and Sophia, standing right outside my building waiting for me. I gripped the steering wheel tightly. This can't be real. I parked and got out of the car, keeping my expression unreadable. Liam! Mom rushed toward me as if nothing had changed, trying to grab my arm. I stepped back. What are you doing here? I asked coldly. We need to talk, Dad said sharply. No, we don't, I replied, brushing past them and heading straight for the entrance. Liam! Mom's voice rose, frustration creeping in. This is serious. I turned around and faced them. Fine, you've got 2 minutes. Mom glanced at Dad, who let out a heavy sigh before speaking. Listen, maybe we were a bit harsh at Christmas. I raised an eyebrow. A bit? Okay, fine, Mom interjected. We should have been more grateful, but we didn't think you'd react like this. Sophia scoffed. Yeah, you're acting like it's some Greek tragedy. I clenched my jaw. So tell me, Sophia, if I'm so over the top, why are you suddenly interested now? She shifted uncomfortably. Mom sighed. Liam, sweetheart, we can't do this without you. We're behind on the mortgage. Your father's medications are piling up. And Sophia, I interrupted. Let me guess. Sophia's in trouble. Silence. I let out a bitter laugh. You all thought I was bluffing, didn't you? You thought I'd cave like always, guilt-tripped into running back with my wallet in hand. Well, guess what? I meant every word. It's over. Mom's face hardened. That's it? You're just going to abandon your family? No, I replied. You abandoned me years ago. I'm just finally accepting that reality. Dad's expression darkened. This is selfish. Oh, really? I stared him straight in the eyes. Because if I were truly selfish, I would have stopped supporting this family years ago. If I were truly selfish, I wouldn't have emptied half my paycheck every month so you could keep the house. If I were truly selfish, I would have left you to deal with your own messes instead of cleaning up after you time and time again. Sophia crossed her arms. God, Liam, stop playing the martyr. I turned to her, my gaze burning. You know what, Sophia? I almost feel sorry for you. You've never had to work for anything in your life. And now, for the first time, you're realizing money doesn't grow on trees, and you hate it. She glared at me but said nothing. Mom shook her head. You'll regret this, Liam. I exhaled slowly. No, Mom. For the first time in my life, I really don't think I will. I turned and walked into the building, closing the door firmly behind me. They didn't follow. Exactly 1 month passed before everything started to crumble. At first, they acted like they were doing just fine without me. Mom sent passive-aggressive texts about how they were managing and how Sophia was stepping up to her responsibilities. I ignored them. And then reality hit. One night, as I was finishing my shift at the hospital, I received a message from an unknown number. Are you happy now, Liam? I looked at the screen. Liam, Mom and Dad had to sell the house. I blinked. I hadn't expected things to fall apart this quickly. I typed back, me, and how exactly is this my problem? Her reply came immediately. Liam, why did you do this? If you'd helped us like you always did, we wouldn't be in this situation. I exhaled, rubbing a hand over my face. They actually thought I was the villain here. A week later, I learned the details. Mom and Dad had completely drained their savings trying to keep up with the mortgage payments after I cut them off. The bills kept piling up. Dad's medications, unpaid utilities, property taxes. Sophia, for all her bravado, couldn't contribute a single cent, and since she had no backup plan, they'd been forced to sell the house just to stay afloat. The news didn't come from them directly, but from Uncle Robert, Mom's older brother. "You did the right thing, son," he told me over the phone. "Your parents have been reckless with money for years. They were just using you as a safety net. And where are they now? In some cheap apartment in the city." He paused. "And Sophia? She's losing it." I smiled bitterly. Of course she was. For the first time in her life, she was facing consequences. Sophia's meltdown came 2 days later. She barged into my apartment unannounced. I didn't even have time to react before she stormed through the door like she owned the place. "You've ruined everything!" she screamed, throwing her bag onto the couch. I leaned against the kitchen counter, crossing my arms. "Nice to see you too." "Don't make jokes," she growled. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Mom and Dad had to move into some horrible apartment because of you. The inheritance is gone." "I know," I replied indifferently. Sophia's face turned red. "We had a plan. Mom and Dad were going to leave everything to me and I—" She stopped abruptly, pressing her lips together. I raised an eyebrow. "And you what, Sophia?" Silence. Suddenly, it clicked. "Oh my God," I said with a dry laugh. "You were planning to keep the house and sell it for the cash, weren't you?" Her expression gave her away. That was exactly her plan. She didn't care about the house for sentimental reasons. She just wanted an easy payday. And now that it was gone, she had nothing. "Get out of my apartment," I said, suddenly exhausted. "Liam, I'm telling you, get out." She glared at me before grabbing her bag. "You think you're better than us just because you have money. You're selfish, Liam, just like those rich people you work with." I shook my head. "No, Sophia. I worked my ass off for this. I built my life from nothing while you sat around waiting for everything to fall into your lap. And now it's over. I'm not letting you treat me like an ATM anymore." For the first time, she had no response. I opened the door, and after a long silence, she stormed out. Mom's last attempt came a few days later. It was my lunch break at the hospital when she called. "Liam," she began, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "What do you want, Mom?" She sighed dramatically. "It hasn't been easy for us, you know. We lost the house. We have nothing left." She paused, waiting for a reaction. "Don't you feel even a little guilty?" I took a bite of my sandwich. "No." Silence. Then came the real reason for the call. "Listen, sweetheart, I've been thinking. Your apartment is so big and you live alone. Maybe your father and I could stay with you for a while, just until we get back on our feet." I nearly choked on my food. "Absolutely not." Her voice hardened. "Liam, don't be ridiculous." "Mom," I interrupted, "you made your decision. Now live with it." She let out a muffled sound. "How can you be so cruel to your own parents?" "Cruel?" I repeated. "You exploited me for years. You lied to me. You let Sophia walk all over me without ever standing up for me. And now you think I'm going to let you move in with me?" "We're your family," she argued. "No," I replied coldly. "I was just an ATM to you. And now that the money's gone, so is your interest in me." Silence. Then she started crying. But I felt no guilt this time. Not this time. "Goodbye, Mom," I said before, hanging up. Freedom. It had taken me years, but I was finally free. No more paying their mortgage, no more covering Sophia's debts, no more constant guilt trips, manipulation, or conditional love that only lasted as long as my bank account was accessible to them. For the first time in my life, my money was mine. I finally started saving seriously. I traveled. I took time off work without feeling like I was leaving my family in crisis. And the best part? I felt lighter. They had drained me for years. And now they were learning what it meant to live without me. And you know what? I didn't regret cutting them out. Not for a single second. It had been 6 months since I left them. 6 months of silence. 6 months of peace. For the first time in my life, I had control over my own money, my own decisions, my own future. No more guilt-laden messages, no more desperate calls, no more feeling like I owed my life simply because we shared the same DNA. And you know what? I thrived without them. A life without chains. At first, it felt strange. For years, I had structured my life around their needs. My paycheck had never really belonged to me. There was always another bill, another emergency, another Liam, we need you. So when I finally had financial freedom, I didn't even know what to do with it. I remember one night sitting in my apartment, looking at my bank account for the first time in years. It wasn't empty. Midway through the month, I had savings. Real savings. And in that moment, I realized I could finally live for myself. So I did. I finally took those vacations I'd always postponed. 2 full weeks in Italy. I ate in Rome, drank wine in Tuscany, hiked the trails of Cinque Terre. I renovated my apartment and decorated it exactly how I wanted. I cut back my hours at the hospital, giving myself time to breathe instead of working myself to exhaustion just to keep my family afloat. I was happy. And the best part of all? I didn't miss them. One night, after a long shift, I was getting ready for bed when my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me check. It was a message from Sophia. Liam, please call me. It's important. I stared at the screen, unsure. She's sick, and you're a doctor. You should care, I thought. But then I sighed. I cared for years. I paid for everything, kept them afloat while you did nothing. And now, after months of silence, suddenly you want my help again. I didn't reply. I didn't expect an answer, and I didn't write back. I had chosen myself. I never found out what happened to Mom. Not because I couldn't afford to find out, but because I chose not to. I chose myself. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty about it. Because here's the truth. I sacrificed years of my life for them, and they never appreciated it. They took and took until there was nothing left of me to give. And when I finally said no, they turned on me. So now, they could live with their choices. And I could live with mine. A life without them. A life where finally, I was the priority. And you know what? It was the best decision I ever made. Final update and response to comments. I wanted to come back here to express my immense gratitude for the support and advice. To be honest, I never expected this story to go viral. But reading your comments has truly helped me process everything that happened. To those who shared their own experiences, you're not alone. Cutting ties with a toxic family is never easy, but sometimes it's the only way to regain control of your own life. I did what was right. Many of you have asked if I feel guilty or regret my decision. The honest answer is, not at all. For years, I gave everything while they took without a second thought. It became clear that they never valued me as a son or brother, only as a source of money. As soon as I stopped giving, they pushed me away. So no, I don't feel guilty. I feel free. But every now and then, I wonder, was I too harsh? Could I have handled things differently? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. To everyone who supported me, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Some of your comments made me feel more validated than my own family ever did. Seeing so many people say, "You did the right thing," helped silence that little voice in my head trying to make me feel guilty. Many of you highlighted something important. My family was never really a family. They were just users. Recognizing that, as painful as it was also incredibly liberating. If you're stuck in a similar situation, feeling guilty about wanting to step away, remember this. You don't owe your financial stability or mental health to anyone. Your life belongs to you. To those who called me selfish, I saw some comments saying things like, "They're still your parents. You should have helped them. You're a doctor. Money means nothing to you, so why not give it to them?" Or, "Family is family, no matter what." To that, I respond, where was all this energy when I was working 80-hour weeks just to pay their bills? Where was this concern for family when they mocked me to my face at Christmas and said I was worthless? I didn't abandon my family. They abandoned me a long time ago. I simply walked away. And if that makes me selfish, then fine. I'd rather be selfish and free than generous and exploited. Sometimes people expect us to always be the heroes of the story, even when they treat us poorly. But, as we're taught on airplanes, we must put on our own oxygen mask before helping others. If we don't take care of ourselves, we can't take care of anyone else. What if, in the end, the family had changed their minds and truly needed his help? Should he have given them a second chance, even after everything that happened? Your opinion matters to all of us. And if you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. We always have new videos, and the next one will surprise you. See you there.